is something of a paradox in the rush towards the green revolution. The materials required to power electric cars, solar panels and mass storage batteries, for example, require more rare earth mining than ever before. An electric car requires 6 times more minerals than a petrol-powered vehicle. A wind turbine, 4 times more minerals than a coal-fired power station. On face value, it would seem we have a long way to go on this journey towards true net zero sustainability. Well, to talk more about this, we're joined now by JOHN MAVROGENES, Professor of Economic Geology at the Australian National University. Professor, is that essentially true? Have we got this path towards sustainability right, focusing on the minerals-intensive approach we're using currently?
Well, we don't have too many options. If we're going to stop this immense amount of CO2 emission that we're currently producing, we're going to have to go to alternatives that don't produce such incredible amounts of CO2. And one of those would be solar powered batteries, magnets and wind powers, certainly EV revolution. Anything that we can run electricity in the future will have to do that. Now the problem is, how do we get the energy to make the transition? So that's our first problem. The second problem is, once we make the transition, how do we keep recycling those metals once they're produced? It's one thing to say, okay, we're going to have to mine, billions of tons of material with rare earths and lithium and cobalt and all of these critical metals in them. It's another thing to say, once we have them, what are we going to do with them? So an example I like to think about is that if everyone's going to have a smartphone, each smartphone has 46 different elements in it. Now, recycling that smartphone is not easy at all. And that in itself takes huge amounts of energy. We need to either melt it in a big smelter, or we need to dissolve it in big vats of sulfuric acid or hydrochloric acid. So that there are many challenges to the green revolution. And so the first step has to be getting the raw materials to make it, to get it started.
What about the focus now, and I think this is more of a focus now than it ever has been before, Professor, on essentially remining, so the extraction of minerals from mining waste?
Well, it's a funny thing that in my lifetime I've seen gold go from $30 an ounce to now something like $2,000 an ounce. And in the old days, the old timers would take the big nuggets and they get the goodies out of most of it and leave large amounts of gold in the tailings. So when the prices started going up in the 80s, we went and remined the tailings and made significant money off that gold. As gold keeps going up in price, we can keep remining the tailings. One of the scary things is that many of the critical elements like cobalt and lithium and certainly the rare earths, we have thrown back into dams and left them there. And so they're easier to mine than to open a new mine. So yes, remining tailings is something we will always be doing. In fact, I can imagine a time in the future where we'll be mining up landfill. We'll be digging up landfill to take useful things that we've considered rubbish. We throw stuff away that we will need someday.
And do we have the technology now to do this effectively, or is this something that, innovation will obviously continue, but is this something that we need more innovation of until we can do it at a scalable level?
Yeah, well, the rare earths are a very interesting problem because the minerals that the rare earths reside in are often difficult to break down and to make them release the rare earth metals themselves. And then once we get them released, we still have to separate them. Remember, there are many of them. There's something like 14 or 15 rare earths that we want, and every mineral that holds them has all of them to some extent. So that we need to get a lot better at extraction. The only country in the world that's really sophisticated at this is China, for numerous reasons. One, that they have one of the biggest deposits on Earth, and secondly, they could throw resources into learning how to do this, even if it wasn't profitable. Now we're at a situation where we need to start doing it ourselves, and so yes, it is possible. We just have to put a lot of effort into it, and we have to start now.
So you talked about China. When you look at the global scale, doing this really, really well. Obviously, we know that there are mines in Australia that are doing it. We know that there are mines elsewhere in the world, like Sweden, which is also, using similar technology. Who's doing it best? Who's coming in to a close second from China, if indeed there is a close second?
Well, look, the production of rare earths coming out of China is immense. And this is not only because they have the largest deposit on Earth, but because they also are ahead of the game in terms of processing. So that if you want to develop a mine, there's every chance that we will send the minerals that we mine to Asia somewhere to be processed. Part of the reason is that they're good at it. Another part of it is that their labor is cheaper. And a third is that at least traditionally they've had less environmental regulation, so that they weren't as concerned about any damage to the environment or damage to the people doing the work. So it's not as if it's clean and green and lovely. It's just that they're very good at it. And one of the advantages of us doing it ourselves is that now that we've discovered that we have huge deposits of rare earths, it might be good for us to A, do it ourselves so that it's clean and safe, B, make the profits off it, aside from just shipping the minerals overseas and letting someone else make the profits. The real money to be made off the rare earths isn't just in digging them up. It's in selling batteries or selling an iPhone at the end. Right? It's an amazing process how much value is added to all those metals that are put into a smartphone when you buy it for $1,200 and it only has $100 worth of material in it. Right? That's where the real value adding is. So that's where we have to step up and make that big step.